As we approach 2025, me and my guests look back in the world of wrestling on 2024. I am joined by the man who covers everything there is to cover when it comes to women's hoops. You can catch him on the Women's Fast Break on SI. You can catch him on the Lundberg Show on YouTube. And you can also catch him on the Smackdown post show with Denise Salcedo on her Smackdown post show. I am joined by Lundberg. What's going on, Robin?
What up? Diane, huh? Denise, yeah. What's good, man? What's good? Happy 2024, or happy 2025. Fond farewell, 2024.
Exactly, man. Shout out to Denise Salcedo. And the way this is going to go down, we are giving out awards, and it's going to be breaking down in 5 different categories. We are going to give you our selections for MVP, Match of the Year, PLE/pay-per-view of the year, Breakout Star of the Year, and Booker of the Year. The last one will be open-ended. I will be giving you my choices for the AEW side, and Robin will be giving you his choices for the WWE side. I want to start this off, Robin, by giving you the choice. Who do you think is the MVP for WWE in 2024?
You know, that's a kind of a tough one, 2024 as a whole, but I guess the answer needs to be Cody Rhodes. He was the one who finished his story at WrestleMania. He was the one who, after the Royal Rumble, when it looked like it was going to be Roman and The Rock, the fans rallied behind Cody Rhodes with that movement, the We Want Cody movement, that winds up winning out for them, even over, that tribal chief showdown, if you will. So Cody Rhodes gets that championship, completes his story, completes the story beyond winning the championship, but, from going to AEW back to WWE after losing to Roman, and does it in a very memorable fashion, considering how it all came to actually be. I think since then, it's been a little bit more of a cruise control for them, but the pedal was to the metal at the beginning of the year. So for that, I think Kingdom reigns supreme for 2024.
For sure, and I have to agree with you on that one. Cody Rhodes is the guy who is in the main event of all the house shows. He's been the guy who, even outside of the bloodline stuff, when Roman Reigns isn't around, Cody Rhodes has been the guy to carry the torch. If I'm going to have to give you my MVP for the AEW side, I'm going to have to give it to Will Ospreay. And a perfect example of how valuable Will Ospreay has been for AEW was last week at World's End, where he had that great opening match against Kyle Fletcher and then finish it off by having a great match with Okada. He is a guy who, ever since he made his permanent debut in AEW at AEW Revolution, he's been putting on 5-star bangers after bangers. And I think from the outside perspective, he's kind of taken over as the face for the company when it comes to people who are not so much the diehard AEW followers, but the people who have at least casually glanced at the product.
Yeah, no, I think when you look back at the big 3 free agent signings for AEW, he has been the one that has worked out the best so far between Ospreay, Okada, and Mercedes Moné, and he feels like the next face of the company, which was probably MJF before, after all the CM Punk stuff. So I think that's the right pick probably there too.
Yeah. So next we are going to move on to the Breakout Star of the Year. Robin, who do you think is the WWE Breakout Star of the Year in 2024?
This is a tough one, because I'm trying to think of like the stars that burst onto the scene, right? Like that weren't already entrenched. I feel like Rhea Ripley probably predates 2024 a little bit. Tiffany Stratton had a nice breakout this year. Dominic Mysterio, I also feel like maybe he predates too. I'm trying to. It's hard because I have to go back and look when the hottest things with all these people were. So let me mix it up a little bit, and I'll say Tiffany Stratton because she feels like she really broke out in 2024. And there's no pass to that. Like, I think Dominic Mysterio drew so much heat and is going places because of that. I think Rhea Ripley may be as hot as any women's wrestler has ever been, outside of perhaps Becky Lynch at the peak of the man movement. But when it comes to just breaking out, I'll say it's Tiffy time.
You know who I think really, deserves to get a little bit of props maybe more than you have a little bit of props, of breaking out in the WWE. That person to me really is Chelsea Green. And she has something that I see a lot in Sami Zayn, where she's an individual who it doesn't matter where you put at the card or how good the creative you give to her or how bad the creative you give to her. She's somebody who is able to make the most out of it. And the fact that she has been able to become the first United States women's champion is something that you can really tip your hat at. And I think that she's really been somebody who's really gained a lot of momentum this year.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I think her character worked even when she was losing and stuff because of the way she could, kind of laugh it off in that arrogant sense. But yeah, it was nice to see her rewarded as well.
For AEW, and this was kind of a toss-up, if you would have asked me prior to the last 2 months, I think that it's obviously Swerve Strickland. Kyle Fletcher is somebody who's really been catching up the last several months, with his big-time win against Will Ospreay at Full Gear, his big-time win against the eventual Continental Classic winner in Okada on Collision. But I'm still going to have to give it to Swerve Strickland. This is a guy who started to heat up a little bit in 2023 with his big win against Hangman Adam Page, but he really kind of solidified himself as right there as maybe the 1B or 1A to Will Ospreay, becoming the first African-American AEW champion, main eventing All In with Bryan Danielson. He's a guy who went from somewhere who was in the middle of the mid-card to really one of the upper echelon guys in AEW this year. So I'm going to have to give the breakout star to Swerve Strickland in AEW.
Yeah, I mean, got the title right, had some memorable moments during the course of it, and definitely established himself as one of the pillars there.
So next we are going to move on to the PLE/pay-per-view of the year. Robin, I'm pretty sure I know what your answer is going to be, and we're both going to be kind of biased with our answers because I'm sure that your answer is going to be an event that you happen to go to, and my answer is going to be an event that I happen to go to. But tell the people, what do you think is the PLE of the year in 2024?
Yeah, I think it's WrestleMania. I mean, I was there and certainly biased as a result of that. I was there with my son, fun trip, fun memory. But I also think it would be that way for most folks. Night one had that Sami Zayn win over Gunther, which was tremendous, and the tag match. The Rock is back involved in a match. It had been a minute since he had been in ring action, and then that second night has that epic bloodline rules. I mentioned Cody Rhodes winning, but not just Cody Rhodes winning. You had Seth Rollins being there and Roman deciding to go after Seth, which costs him, which is a full circle poetic moment. Cody winning. On top of that, all the run-ins, Cena showing up, The Rock back, and the Undertaker gong. If you could bottle that energy from that moment, that was like pure euphoria in that building because people were actually expecting Stone Cold Steve Austin. Because it had kind of been teased and rumored. And I think Triple H had put out a post at 316 or something like that. And people were like, oh my God, it's Stone. So people were kind of expecting that glass break, which made the gong a swerve, and all those things into consideration. I just, as an event, I don't know how you top WrestleMania.
For sure, man. And even in the world of wrestling, whether you are an AEW fan, WWE fan, or anybody who's in between, WrestleMania is the Super Bowl of wrestling. So I would have to agree with you on that one. My choice, there's a couple of different choices that really kind of went into my mind, but I'm going to go with AEW Revolution, which I happen to be at. That was Sting's last match, him and Darby Allin teaming up against the Young Bucks. It was Will Ospreay's full-time debut in AEW against Takeshita. We also had Danielson versus Eddie Kingston, and we had the triple threat between Swerve Strickland and Hangman Adam Page and Samoa Joe. Obviously, as you guys can tell in the background, I'm a huge Sting fan. Being in the arena where you had my favorite wrestler of all time retiring against my favorite tag team of all time. Yeah, don't shoot the messenger. The Bucks are great. But it was one of those things where it's like, it's not WrestleMania because of how big the scope of the event is, but from a sentimental standpoint, it was one of the greatest wrestling memories I'll ever have of all time. And I'm glad I was happy to be there. That was my pay-per-view of the year, AEW Revolution.
Sting, is it because of the send-off, or if let's say Sting hadn't been sent off there, would it have been something else?
Even if it wasn't a send-off, it was just a regular match. The match itself was great. They had the entrance where his sons were involved, and you had the different phases of Sting. You saw Darby Allin jump off of the ladder and do kind of that front flip into the plate of glass. You had Sting go balls to the wall. And just seeing the fact that this was my first time seeing Will Ospreay wrestle in person. And I feel like that's one of the draws that AEW has right now, where it's like when you go to a pay-per-view, a lot of people who've never been to a show before, just from talking to the events that I was able to go to this year, which was multiple, that's one of the main things people were saying. Oh, we get to see Will Ospreay wrestle. That was why I'm here. You know, I drove 4 or 5 hours because I wanted to see Will Ospreay wrestle. So the fact that that was Will Ospreay's first time debut, the tag team match, the main event, the show, that's what makes it the best show of the year to me, at least in the AEW side.
Fair enough.
So we're going to move on to the match of the year. This is going to be a little bit tricky, but I kind of have a feeling I know what you're going to say as well. But let the people know, Robin, what do you think is the match of the year?
Yeah, I mean, I've got to go back to WrestleMania. I think Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes is everything wrestling can be. You know, like it's sports entertainment and it was pro wrestling at the same time. I mean, I think Roman and Cody have terrific chemistry in the ring. When they had the match 2 years ago, it was good. When they had the interaction in the tag match on the Saturday night, it was good. This match again was good, was paced well, was told well, but it had the storytelling element, which I referenced with Seth Rollins, which I thought was beautifully done. And it had the like over the top element with all the run-ins and the star power. So most things are about memories and the like, and there were probably matches that may have had a couple of more like fast-paced spots in them or whatever the case may be over the course of the year. And there's some good matches, don't get me wrong, but as far as everything WWE and wrestling can be, I don't know how you make another choice.
For me, that match was pretty much the wrestling equivalent of Avengers Endgame. You have everything that you could possibly have when you have a trademark WWE match, and you had all the stars just, in the kitchen sink, just thrown at the wall. You got everything that you wanted. You got the story that people wanted to see complete. You had the two big stars in Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes of our generation, and you also got the cameos of the legends. One WWE match that, and I would agree with you, that is the match of the year. But the other one that I feel like is slightly below that is probably Drew McIntyre and CM Punk in Hell in a Cell. That match was everything a Hell in a Cell match needs to be in my mind. It was violent, it was bloody, and it was the blow off to a long, intense feud.
Yeah, that would be in the top 3, top 5 at worst, but maybe top 2. I mean, I Sammy Gunther at WrestleMania is another good one. I'm trying to think of the big event matches and because there were some of the combo matches that were really good over the course of the year. But yeah, I think if you're not choosing that one, that's probably the second selection. If we were on the Family Feud, that would be the number 2 answer on the board.
And for me, for the AEW side, there's a lot of different choices I could have went with. I could have went with Sting's last match. I could have went with Swerve versus Danielson at All In at the main event. I could have went with Swerve and Hangman in the unsanctioned steel cage match at All Out. But I'm going to go with Bryan Danielson versus Will Ospreay. Like I've said earlier, and if you work and seen a lot of my other content, I'm a huge Will Ospreay guy. I feel like he has been the wrestler of the year in all of wrestling. It feels like every single time the guy steps in the ring, it's a potential to have a 5 to 6 star match. And to see two guys who, if you were a sweaty wrestling nerd like myself, and you were able to pick any randomized dream matches you have, Ospreay versus Danielson is right up there. And I feel like they didn't disappoint at all. You saw different spots that you never thought you would see a human being be able to do with their body. And then the story they were able to tell where Danielson got put down on his head by Will Ospreay, and you thought Bryan Danielson wouldn't be able to wrestle again, and Will Ospreay wasn't doing the Tiger Driver 91 after that for a while because of what he did with Danielson. I thought was good long-term storytelling that they were able to do that paid off at All In against, Ospreay and MJF. And just in totality, a great match in what is AEW all about.
Yeah, I mean, you could tell from the crowd, they were just excited to see them in the ring together. They gave it like that little bit of a big fight feel, if you will. So just the fact that the crowd was like, holy shit, this is actually happening, helped take it over the top too.
For sure, man. And the last one we are going to get to, that is Booker of the Year. Robin, I will give you the honors first.
The Rock. I mean, I don't know who to give this to because I keep shouting out WrestleMania, right? Like the fans, in a sense, the WWE universe, they made things happen. I mean, ultimately, I suppose it lands at the feet of Triple H, the way it paid off, but it's such a strange thing to say because how do I put all that into one thing? The most memorable 2024 like will be defined to me about that build up to WrestleMania, the end to WrestleMania, all that stuff, right? Like that's what 2024 was. And therefore I have to build it around that, but the way it came to be is part of what made it so memorable. And The Rock comes back and you think he's taking Cody Rhodes' spot. Then the fans rebel and Cody gets the spot back. And then it ends the way it does. But ultimately, that's under the guidance of Triple H. So I guess he wins it.
Triple H. All right. I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball. I'm going to give it to Shawn Michaels down there at NXT. And the reason why I'm giving it to Shawn Michaels is because you can make an argument that they have the strongest women's division in all of pro wrestling at the moment. And once NXT 2.0 under Vince McMahon and Bruce Pritchard was no more, they kind of had to deal with a rebuilding phase of the brand. It was extremely hot when it was the black and gold brand under Triple H. The brand became very missable under Vince McMahon and Bruce Pritchard. So Shawn Michaels was having to rebuild something and make it cool again. It's became a thing where people are excited to talk about NXT. I remember a few months ago, we were having a text exchange where you said your kids even asked you to watch an episode of NXT because it's become such a hot thing. And they've been able to take people who were kind of like rejects. That's kind of a harsh word, but kind of like thrown to the side in AEW, like Ethan Page and Brian Pillman Jr., and make them credible wrestlers on the roster and helpful people to the brand itself. So I'm going with Shawn Michaels for my Booker of the Year. Plus, they have kind of been on a long win streak against AEW. I think it's something like they have won 8 of the last 10 times when it comes to the ratings battle, and the last 3 times where they've gone head to head with each other. So just based off of the fact that he's made NXT cool again, they have a strong women's division, and they've been able to beat AEW in the ratings battle the last 3 times that they've gone head to head together. I will give it to Shawn Michaels.
So Booker of the Year is the Generation X.
Facts. So that's all for you guys. Remember to like the video and subscribe. Robin, where can the people find you again?
Yeah, check out my YouTube channel, Robin Lundberg Show, over on YouTube. And if you're into women's basketball, Women's Fast Break on SI. Plus, as you mentioned at the top, I do Friday night Smackdown recap show with Denise Salcedo and some shows over on Busted Open Radio on Sirius XM as well.
For sure. And you guys will find the links to all of Robin's stuff in the description of this video. I am Kevin Zwicker. I'm out.
Eat.